Well, happy New Year, everybody. We're back after a little bit of a break. We're kind of itching to get into it. There's a lot to talk about here on episode 391 of the 3 Point Podcast. As always, we're presented by Memorial Healthcare's Wellness Center. Make sure you get in shape with a membership. Participate in the new 2026 Wellness Challenge. That's 4 8-week wellness challenges with prizes beginning January 7th. So it's just coming up. As today, we're recording on January 5th. Other great partners include AZee Branding Solutions, Blackstone's Public House, formerly Rivals, Jacobs Insurance Agency, Kori and Associates Real Estate Services, Nelson House Funeral Homes, Success Group Mortgage and Servicing, Shiawassee County Fair, and ALS of Michigan. Our sponsor spotlight today to start off the year, Nichols Painting, over 30 years experience, residential or commercial, indoor or outdoor, great results at affordable prices. Call or text Josh at Nichols Painting, 989-494-3244. Well, fellas, we made it through a holiday season. Who wants to start on a little catch-up? Anything interesting happened during the break?
I don't know about interesting, but it was just I relived what it was like to, when you were in school and you had that 2 weeks off where I'm not saying it felt like it was forever because I was home with the kids a lot. I'm not saying it that way, but you remember what it was like when you're in elementary school or even through high school.
Oh, yeah.
When you had that 2 week break, it just seemed like it was so long. I've got 2 weeks off of school, and yeah, so I took a bunch of days off. My wife took days off so we could be home with the kids. We didn't have to try and find camps or whatever for them to be in. And it did, after Christmas, when you still had that full week of the New Year's week, it was trying to figure out I got to find some stuff for us to do. This long 2 week break is the kids are loving it, but sleeping in and just kind of playing and doing whatever. But no, it was kind of cool to relive that 2 week, because the other times we've either gone to Michigan for the holiday or we've gone to Tennessee. We've we do different things for the holiday, or I work a lot of it, so having 2 weeks where I was almost off, I did still work a few days, was like I said, almost like reliving that break for school age kids. But no, it was fun. I mean, we don't have the snow down here, obviously, like you guys have had in Michigan. My family has been sending videos and pictures and stuff of sledding and ice fishing and all that kind of stuff. But so we haven't had that kind of winter fun. But no, it's been a great break. Holiday was good, and kids back in school this morning. We're recording, like I said, Monday morning, so back in school and everything this morning.
You're right. And what was even crazier break was always college break, where you were off for
3 weeks.
Quite literally, I think 5 weeks. Kind of
Right.
College schedule is kind of hilarious. It really makes no sense. I have kind of a little bit of a wild card segment that sort of ties into the holiday, sort of doesn't. So what were you up to, Ted, before I get into that? And maybe it derails us a little bit.
Yeah, I'll condense it down a little bit. We had obviously our Fattel family party at Frankenmuth and the get-together afterwards. We missed you, Jared, and missed a few people this year. This is one of the smallest gatherings we've had, but it still was fun as always. We went to a new venue this year, and it got high grades on. Everybody loved it, so we'll probably be doing that in the future. But really, the most recent holiday story I have is just this last weekend. Spur of the moment, a cousin of my wife texted us at 8:30 on Friday night, says, "Hey, I got Red Wing tickets in the club section." And we said, "Do we want to go?" And we said, it took us about 1 second to say, "Hell yes." And no diss to you, Jared, when you hooked me up with tickets through FanDuel or Bally at the time,
nosebleeds.
Those were nosebleeds. These were, I'm spoiled now. I mean, we had actually a bucket list trip. I mean, my wife always said she wanted to sit down at the glass. We were about as close as you could get, 11 rows back, absolutely perfect seats. And then the kicker was, you go in these club areas down at Little Caesars, you know what it's like, Jared. I mean, it's unbelievable. The actual ticket cost was, I think, like $230, and where we parked was $60. Keep in mind, all this was free to us. Everything was included. And you go into this little club area where it's like a mini restaurant, gourmet food, all the beer and wine you want to drink. You pay for mixed drinks, but everything else is free. So it's gourmet food, including fillets, and it's just amazing. So that was one of our bucket list items right there, knocked off this holiday season.
That is cool. And it's cool too that the Red Wings, I mean, we'll probably talk about it maybe if we have time, get to it a little later, but the Red Wings are playing well. I know they lost that game, but Red Wings are a good team this year, so that helps.
Yeah, they didn't play too good that day. They had 12
Right.
shots on goal, but we didn't care. We were living like
Right.
kings.
Right.
Yeah, it is. That's the way to do it. Like I went to a concert on New Year's Eve, Treaty Oak Revival, just a small country band from at the Toyota Center where the Rockets play. And I'm just like, I mean, you guys have probably noticed it. I mean, I feel like I have to run to the bathroom every podcast. Like, I have to pee all the time. I pee a lot. And that is it. Like, we were sitting right in the dead center of this section, like where, seat 15, where it's 15 seats to the right, 15 seats to the left.
Right.
It almost ruins the experience for me when I have to run to the bathroom. Like,
Right.
you have to pack by 15 people every time. So that's you're in that club section where it's spaced out. You don't have to bother anybody when you walk past them to go to the bathroom. That is worth the extra money that you pay every time. So I can respect that. And I've actually never went to a Red Wings game. It's crazy. I've worked them, but I've never sat in the stands and watched them. And I've heard they're absolutely awesome. So that's kind of a regret I definitely have that I never did that for whatever reason. But yeah, so I have kind of a weird. This is just an example of kind of my weird brain. I'm going to try to get through this as quick as I can. So a long time ago, I don't know where I started this idea. I came up with where I just, if somebody is cool, I want to make sure I remember them. So I started a list of guys who ruled. This was like 3 or 4 years ago. And I just kind of periodically added to this list, over the course of the last few years. And I'm just going to do it now because I've been holding on to this for years. I've never read it on this podcast. I just figured I might as well rip through it as it's the new year. So I'm just list all these guys that I would say who rule or, in parentheses, ruled their history. And I'll just let you guys go from there. I don't know if this is a good segment or not, but I'm just going to do it. So, all right, here we go. All right. Jay Gatsby, Michael Vick, Kyrie Irving, John Fanta, Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, Ken Griffey Jr., Obi-Wan Kenobi, Dan Campbell, Calvin Candy, Dr. King Schultz, Django Unchained. That's all from Unchained. Jim Leland, Barry Bonds, Ernie Davis, Miguel Cabrera, Sean Taylor, taped face mask, Victor Cruz, salsa dance, Chauncey, Mr. Big Shot Billups. That actually I added an asterisk to his name last couple months. Julian Edelman, Eminem, beautiful music video with Tiger Stadium getting torn down behind Brian Cushing, Tim Robinson, Joe Walsh, Coach Carter, CP3, Barry Melrose, Steve McNair, Tim Tebow, Larry Colmus. He's the Kentucky Derby announcer. Ernie Johnson, Alex Anzalone. I've always loved Anzalone. Maybe we'll talk about why he's not as good as he once was. Pedro Martinez, KD, Dan Redmond, Kirk Cousins. I like Kirk Cousins because he squeezes out every drop of his talent. If you watch the quarterback show, I think that's why he rules. Lane Kiffin, Hasbullah, Lou Gehrig, his famous speech. Small, Coach Klein, Joshua Birnbaum from Heavyweights, George Iceman Gervin, Jim Nance, Denard Robinson, Michael B. Jordan, Vince from Friday Night Lights, Killmonger, Tim Riggins, Hugo, John Locke, Harley, and Desmond, all from Lost. Chris Johnson, CJ2K. Mason Graham, Ohio State, inappropriate word. That was all-time moment.
Yep.
Shohei Ohtani, John Gruden, Mark Wahlberg, Four Brothers, White Long Sleeve Edition. LeBron, Bane, Jalen Brunson, Green Goblin, Bubba Watson, Sunday at the Masters. He's always said if he had a shot, he's got a swing. Jackie Robinson, Dr. J, Pistol Pete, Outdoor Boys, who actually retired from YouTube. Tiger Woods, Blake Corum, Stalwart. Derek G, Allen Iverson, Kellen Moore, 50-4. Vern Lundquist, 2012-14 SEC football. Jim Jones, he had a cult following. He's kind of a bad guy. Chris Chelios, The Mandalorian, This Is the Way. Bear Grylls, Oscar Schindler. James Bond, Daniel Craig edition is my favorite. Luka Doncic, Jon Snow in that one. Patrick Starr from SpongeBob. Quentin Jammer has an awesome name. I think he recently just announced that he was drunk like during games or something like that.
Yeah.
Willie Mays, he was an awesome high school quarterback, but obviously due to the time, there wasn't many like him playing quarterback. Coach Boone, remember the Titans? Billy Bob Thornton from Night Lights mostly. Will Smith and Men in Black. Clinton. I'm almost done by the way. Clint Eastwood, Grant Reno, Robert Downey Jr., Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man 1 and 2, Joker, Alfred, and Bruce Wayne in The Dark Knight. Messi, Mike Sanderstill, JFK, Patrick Kane, Ichiro, Frank Fleming, Captain Phillips, the Somali Pirate. I'm the captain now. Jeff Nadeau, Pat Finley, Bradley Cooper, Hangover, Andy Dwyer, Rex Burkhead, Yoda, Robert California, John Bassalo, Ed Williams, Larry Fitzgerald, Stephen Kwan, LaDainian Tomlinson, Cam Scott, Luke Kuechly, Heki Matsuyama's caddy Sunday at the Masters, Bowing, Andrew Luck, Tim McGraw, Danny McBride, Tony Gwynn, Nick Saban, Spud Webb, Fredette, Stevie Janowski, Cooper DeJean, Jokic, Matt Ishbia, Rick Pitino, Byron Leftwich, Conor McGregor, Trey Burke, Jared Aberdarius, Megatron, both football and the Transformer edition, Javi Baez, Jeff Gotti, Khabib, Golden Tate, Notre Dame and the Lions, JRE, John Jones, Aaron Donald, Le'Veon Bell, specifically versus Boise State at Michigan State, Dre Bly, John Denzel, Bruce Springsteen, Eric Church, Sam Wise, Lord of the Ring, Lord of the Rings, Akil Badu, Optimus Prime, Draymond Green, MSU, and Saginaw. Years. All right, last one. Like crap, I didn't realize how long this list was, man. Lamar Jackson, Moses like Carlos and Helio Gracie, Colin Cowherd, Woj, Danny Hurley, Reggie Bush, Remick Centers, Brian Cushing, Sonny Vaccaro, Dr. Robert Neville. I can provide food. I can provide shelter. I am legend. Eugene Sledge, Oz Perlman, Kevin Walker, John Beeline, Carpenter, Brad Stevens. Oh my gosh. Jeff Probst, Diego Pavia, David Montgomery, Boy Scout, Gordie Howe, Colin Carr, Kurt Signetti, John Cena, Johnny Drama from Entourage. You can tell we're almost ending it. Kenny Dillingham, Jake Kelly from Avatar, Brady Hoke. I like Brady Hoke. I think he was kind of the better version of Biff Poggi. Like kind of what everything Biff Poggi stood for, but kind of actually maybe embodied it more.
Right.
Chris Mullen, and then I added Aaron Rodgers last night after his all-time finish. So, yeah, kind of a lot. What's your guys' just thoughts on that? Any names stick out?
Quick thought is, man, you must be lonely down there in Houston to take the time to write that out. But other than that, great list. I'd add Tony Annese to that list.
Yeah.
And then, Billy Joel's song, I Didn't Start the Fire. I think 3 people are still alive. So if you maybe put some of those names together to the music of I Didn't Start the Fire, that'd be a good way to present it. Get on that, will you?
Yeah, you could make a little like a social reel out of that.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I like that. I assume that Ted appreciates that you added some guys from his generation. It wasn't all just like from when you've been alive.
Yeah.
And, since. So
the one that jumped out to me was Jim Jones. I mean, that came out of nowhere.
Well, there's a number of Jim Jones.
The ultimate
cult guy, right?
Like, yeah, exactly.
Drink
what
the
did he have?
Kool-Aid.
70 people, drinking. It's just a wild story, man.
It is.
That's like a rap lyric too. So maybe that's where that came from. Some guy said, some guy rapped that he's got a cult following like Jim Jones. So I think that's where it maybe comes from.
Interesting.
He's definitely a wild card on the list. Like I said, it's kind of dumb. I know that, and it's a little bit weird and embarrassing. Should be noted, it's not like something I just wrote on a Sunday afternoon for a few hours. Like I said, it's just been a running list.
Yeah.
For the last few years. So.
Well, it's a good list too, because sometimes people only rule for a short period of time. Victor Cruz, I mean, he had a short stint there with his salsa dance, or Michael Vick maybe ruled with 2004 Madden, and then he had a little bit of a downfall there for a little while where he didn't rule, and then he kind of redeemed himself a little bit. So. It's good that, and like you said, Chauncey Billups, obviously Pistons fans, we'll always love him for that.
Oh yeah.
He's going through some stuff right now. So it's nice that you add some, I guess some, like you said, an asterisk or a little bit of clarification.
It's just at one time, like Denard Robinson, he was awesome. I mean, then he had his UI, and who knows what he's up to now. I don't know. But man, he was cool in his prime, and that's kind of he's the perfect genesis of what that list is.
Oh yeah.
Doesn't mean you were the best player. Doesn't mean you were winning Heisman trophies, or doesn't mean you were the best actor ever. In one specific point in time, man, you were cool. Man, you ruled. That's how I view it.
I will say one name that stuck out. That given a previous conversation we had, I'm gonna assume that Ted maybe disagrees. Is Diego Pavia. If I remember right, you didn't really like how he handled himself at the Heisman ceremony, right?
No, I didn't like that, but I mean, I think he belongs on this list because he's a juice guy, man. He's definitely in the news and has his own style and his own way of going. I for this list, I think he belongs. For my cup of tea, no.
Right.
Yeah, he's. I mean, like I said, like if I was heading him, I don't know if I would add him. Now after this whole Heisman fallout and lose to Iowa. The guy, Clown Mendoza, is looking like head and shoulders, maybe the best player outside of maybe Trinidad Chambliss in all of college football right now. So he's had a tough couple weeks, that's for sure, since the Heisman. But he had a good run there for a couple years where and even after the season, before that Iowa bowl game, he's at UFC fights, he's at concerts. I mean, he was doing a whole press tour basically. So yeah, but yeah. Other than that, the holiday I haven't really been up too much. I mean, it's kind of weird being home. Without anybody, without spending Christmas with the family, but it gives you time to do stuff like that. You have a lot of spare time, not really any obligations. So that's kind of what we did, was to see a couple movies and basically just relax.
Yeah.
I think you need to keep this list going and let it go to the point. I mean, we can always share it.
That's what I was thinking.
You can clip off that little What did that last? About 10 minutes on the runtime? You reading that off?
Yeah, I do. I'm not gonna lie. I skipped about a third of it too. I was like, this is going too long, so I'm just gonna skip the names.
Maybe have. I've one other. So 2 things. Keep that going. So it then becomes such a viral thing that people's goal is to be on Jared Fattel's rule list. And if you're an athlete or a musician or a movie star and you don't make Jared Fattel's list, then you're obviously doing something wrong. 2, and it popped into my head when I said it wasn't 10 minutes. It was only a few minutes, but I was gonna say you can make it so people watch it like at 2x. Have you heard people doing that, Ted? Or like Jared, do you watch videos at 2x speed? My daughter, when she's like on YouTube, like watching her whatever she watches on YouTube, will watch it at 2x speed. And it makes me feel like, oh man, am I like getting old or something? Because it like not just like that doesn't like bother me, but I'm like, how are you even hearing what they're saying? It's like, right. And she just loves it. Like that's like a thing that people just watch videos at 2x now.
Yeah, it's weird. I have some friends that do that. I think my brother listens to podcasts at like 2x. I've tried it. I don't understand it. To me, I think it's something you get used to after do it for a week, and you probably are like, all right, this is just the new normal now. It's like a hyper brain type thing. It's like it makes me feel dumb that I don't. But I'm like an idiot. I bumped mine up to like 1.2 speed. That's about as far as I could bump it up without feeling like I lost a lot to it. I'll be honest. I've been watching the Ken Burns World War II documentary. You talk about something that could use a 2x speed. It's awesome to make Ken Burns rules, but also it's like, holy man,
Ken Burns. Ken Burns was Ken Burns on your list?
He had to be. He should be if he's not. Look, I have to like search it.
That's okay. You can look that up, but he belongs on the list for sure. But
no, he's not. I'll add him right now.
To get to your question, I do speed up podcasts sometimes to 1.5, but that rarely do I do that.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's I should tell you about Rivals Tap House and a Grill. It's about to become Blackstone's public house. Blackstone's expects to make the official switchover in mid-January. Jared Heidel and his staff look forward to bringing a fresh energy and approach to the location. Several of the signature dishes from the Flint restaurant, Blackstone's Smokehouse, will come over to the new menu. The interior has a brand new, fresh look, including a 75-foot mural along the west wall featuring a montage of area athletes. Blackstone's public house is located on the corner of Shiawassee and M21 in Corunna, the Rivals location. New hours, including daily lunch hours, coming soon. Well, guys, we have a fun podcast in store for everybody. I mean, hopefully you had fun listening to our catch-up portion there in Jared's list. But we have a special guest. We have Ferris State's football offensive coordinator and offensive coordinator of the year, Steve Annese. He's going to join us coming up next, right after this. Well, next up on the podcast is a very special guest. We've all heard of the coaching trees of Nick Saban, Bill Belichick, and others, but today we'll get into the Hall of Fame coach Nick Annese's coaching tree. Nick's son, Tony, he's led Ferris State to 4 D2 national championships in the last 5 years. Coach Annese's nephew, Tony, a former CMU standout, is FSU's D coordinator. And joining us today is the D2 National Offensive Coordinator of the Year. How's that sound? It sounds pretty good to me. Steve Annese. First, Steve, welcome to the pod. Congrats on another natty in the award. And I'll start it off with a quick question. On your family get-togethers, do you all sit at the kitchen table, draw up plays on the whiteboard, or maybe the holiday napkins?
No. Much more chill than that. But yeah, it's if we're sitting around watching football, there will always be a conversation about football. So
it's probably also nice to actually have a minute to get away from football and stop talking about it for a few minutes, right?
Yeah, I mean, not doesn't happen too often, but for sure when we're away from work, if we're on the golf course, we're trying to focus on golf, life, something other than football for a little bit.
Yeah.
Probably.
What have you been up to the last couple of weeks since winning the national championship? And does that ever get old, winning those?
Absolutely does not get old winning those. No. Everyone's been unbelievable. And the last couple of weeks, just taking it slow, having a little bit of time off. Nice to get away a little bit. And, I've really not been doing a whole lot, honestly. We worked, 20 straight weeks, 7 days a week. So had like 10 days off or so, and back to recruiting.
Well, Steve, it's our first time meeting officially, and our listeners might be curious. Let's just set the stage a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your journey, where you went to high school, how you made it to be a Division II college coach.
Sure. So I grew up in a few different places while my dad was kind of bouncing around from job to job.
Mm-hmm.
But I ended up going to high school in Whitehall, Michigan. It's about 15 minutes north of Muskegon. My dad was coaching at Muskegon High School, coaching football there. And then actually ended up coaching me in basketball my sophomore, junior, and senior seasons. My siblings as well played basketball, coached them. So my experience with him was through him being a basketball coach when I was in high school, weirdly enough. But then immediately after, I went for one semester to Albion College and played football there, and decided from there that I wanted to maybe coach instead of play. So I came back. I moved to Grand Rapids. At the time, my dad had taken the job at GRCC in downtown Grand Rapids and was coaching football there. And I came back, finished my associate's degree there, and coached high school football at Northview at the time under a guy named Rob Zeitman, who had coached with him at Muskegon, and then ended up he went to Ferris to be our first offensive line coach when my dad took the job at Ferris State, and I went as well at the time. So I was finishing up my college degree, coaching at Ferris as a student assistant, coached slot receivers for a couple years, then moved to receivers, then moved to now being the offense coordinator for the last, I guess, 5 to 6 years or so.
Well, that's an awesome journey, and it's a really cool story. It is funny. I remember when we had your dad on previously, one of the last times, he talked about coaching you guys in basketball and just how that was such a fun experience for him. So it's funny to hear your experience as well. You're talking about the offense that you guys have with Ferris State. I mean, you're one of the masterminds behind it. Obviously, your dad maybe is the guru, but then you're the offensive coordinator, so you won the award. And Ferris State is getting, I mean, whether it's because of social media, all the shares and everything happening, and obviously all the national championships, a lot of people are turning their heads. Ferris State's opening a lot of eyes to what you guys are doing there in Big Rapids. And one of the reasons, too, that Ferris State is getting a pretty big spotlight is Trinidad Chambliss and what he's doing at Ole Miss. And obviously the story's been talked about a lot now at this point that he came from Ferris State. He won a title with you guys last year. I just want to ask you about Trinidad and maybe what you guys saw in him, that what he's doing for the Rebels and Ole Miss is probably no surprise to you guys. What did you guys see in Trinidad that seeing him potentially leading Ole Miss to a national title is no shock to you guys?
Yeah, so first of all, I think a lot of people credit our offensive scheme and some of that stuff. And, we've, I think, done a good job of putting together a unique offensive scheme that's tough to stop. But ultimately, at every level of football, you're going to win the majority of your games when you have players that are better than the team you're playing. Right. That's just the truth of football at all levels. When you have the better players, you're going to win the majority of games. When you have the worst players, you're going to lose the majority of games. Sometimes it doesn't always work out that way, but in a general sense, that's a big deal. So, I think what our staff has been able to do recruiting wise is really been pretty unbelievable. Guys like Trin, and it goes all the way back. We really, over the course of my time at Ferris State since 2012, haven't really gone into a season where it's like, this quarterback really can't play at a high level.
Right.
Before Trin, it was Malik Mitchell, who was an unbelievable player for us, Jared Bernhardt before that, going all the way back, J. Rue Campbell, Reggie Bell, Jason Vanderlaan, through the years have been kind of the starting quarterbacks. And so, when you have guys like that, it's obviously easy to put together some unbelievable seasons. As far as Trin specifically in his skill set, he was just a guy that was an unbelievable athlete, had a really, really competent ability in the pass game, great arm. I think people look at his stature a little bit and him being right around 6 foot and say, oh, he's little. They still talk about that on the broadcast.
Right.
You'll have guys like, oh, he's little. Will he end up being able to go as high in the NFL draft? I heard, I was watching the game the other night and someone says, oh, if he's, 6'2", he's definitely the first quarterback off the board. And it's like, well, I don't know, 6 foot to 6'2", really, for us, what's the difference? I think we traditionally have looked at guys, and when we're doing evaluation at every position, I think height's something that comes in like very, very little into what we're looking at. I think we tend to look at guys that have a ton of success at the high school level, who have really, really good high school tape, who have really, really good skill sets in specific areas. And, it's why, our center's an unbelievable player for us this last year. He's, I don't know, 6'1", 6'2", maybe, but just a really good player. Trin was 6 foot, a really, really good player. We have guys like Brady Rose, who's 5'7", 5'8", and is an unbelievable player. He's the Michigan High School Player of the Year, but he's 5'7" or 5'8". So, if you'd say any other Michigan High School Player of the Year, that year was up against Donovan Edwards, who ended up going to Michigan and having a good career. And I think he's, I think he just got signed off someone's practice squad.
Yeah, with the Dolphins.
But, yeah. So, you have guys like that. Well, we're never going to touch that guy at Ferris State, but we might be able to get the guy that's just a little too short for everyone else. Right. And I think that's what Trin was. At the time, he was just like a little bit too short for everyone else. Didn't necessarily go to a traditional high school football power out of high school. Forest Hills Northern at the time they're solid. Coach Ostapow's done a great job there, but it, hasn't been a high school power in, years. And so you get guys like that maybe are just overlooked for whatever reason. And, again, the things that show on the field are the unbelievable athleticism, the unbelievable arm talent, those are the things that are ultimately going to shine through, not necessarily, oh, this guy's 6 foot. So I think those traits translate, and that's something that we saw. That's something that obviously Ole Miss saw with their looking at our tape, and obviously it's paid off for them.
How would you explain how you guys kind of handled the 3 quarterback system you had this year? I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen a team have 3 quarterbacks and work as well as you guys did. And you had Wyatt Bauer, who's a Corona guy, redshirt freshman. He was obviously got a little bit dinged up. Then you had Chase Carter, who's maybe the fastest quarterback in the entire country. Then you had Carson Gulker, just a football player. How did you guys handle showing those guys in and out? How you did?
So I think this story has to go all the way back to like last spring. At the beginning of last spring, the very beginning, heading into spring ball, Trin had a little bit of a cleanup surgery, but was still planning on coming back to Ferris State at the time, like at the beginning of the spring.
Right.
And so going into that spring, and even a little before that, into the winter, when Trin was coming back, Carson came and said, okay, I understand Trin's the quarterback of this team. I know I played quarterback, but hey, in my recovery from injury, he was coming off of breaking his leg the previous season. So I think I can get to somewhere around 240 pounds, and I think I can play H-back for us. We're like, okay, do it. Awesome. Let's see it, because he's the type of guy that's just going to find a way to get on the field. Right. So that transition had kind of happened. He was like, okay, I'm going to play H-back. And then he wasn't going to be able to take spring ball reps anyway. And then Trin had the cleanup surgery, and really Chase had off-season labrum surgery. So it was really Wyatt. And we were saying, okay, well, let's develop Wyatt. We'll get him a whole spring, and he'll at least be right there ready if Trin gets hurt and he can back up Trin. That was kind of the thought process.
Right.
Learn from Trin for a season, play the following season. And then when Trin left and Wyatt, kind of had such a successful spring, the idea was, okay, like, if we can get Wyatt sorted out between now and the fall, and get him fully ready to play, we're going to be in really good shape. He's an unbelievable talent too. Like, has a lot of those traits that, some of the previous quarterbacks had. So when you're around those traits a lot, you can kind of recognize, hey,
Right.
this kid has it. He has something special. He's going to be in really good shape. So we had, him ready to go. And then coming into the fall, we got Chase back. Chase does some things really well, but really we were using Carson at some H and some quarterback, Chase at some slot and some quarterback, and Wyatt was kind of the primary guy. Now, over the summer, Wyatt had a pretty, probably the highest grade hamstring strain that he had at the time. I think he went like 3 weeks without running at all. And then from there, it was just constantly kind of little tweaks to his hamstring. So that's what people don't know. So it wasn't like intentional, hey, we're going to really, really rotate quarterbacks like crazy. It was Wyatt was kind of banged up over and over again. So he hurt himself again in fall camp, and we had to go like about 3 days of Chase playing every single rep, with Carson mixing in a little bit. And then hurt himself maybe like midway through the season or maybe early part of the season. Not quite as bad, but, again, missed a few practice. And then going into our Saginaw Valley game, where it's really like the first game that he didn't play all of. He hadn't practiced. He hurt himself at near the end of the previous game, and he hadn't practiced really at all going into the Saginaw Valley game. So then he went into the Saginaw Valley game, thought he could play, and just, didn't particularly play well. It was just, everything wasn't timed up for him. I think a combination of being hurt and not having practiced very much because of the hamstring. So then Chase came in and kind of saved the game that game. We were down 17 points at half maybe, and Chase came in and won the game. So then from there, it was like trying to get Wyatt back healthy, using Chase a lot. Chase has a lot of skill, that helps us out a lot. Like you mentioned, he's unbelievably fast, but, we were trying to use a lot of his skill sets in a lot of different ways. And then I think a week later, Chase gets hurt. Chase had turf toe the whole latter half of the season that he was dealing with. So, it was really more of a, which quarterback's going to be healthy for us today rather than we're at the whim of whatever we want to do. So the navigation was a little easier than you think, just because it was, based more on necessity than anything else.
Well, nice to have 3 quality quarterbacks. That's a heck of a problem to have, and you guys managed it really well. Coach, just a couple quick follow-ups on Wyatt, if you don't mind. Number one, right before the first game, I understand TA, coach, announced to him he's starting, but he didn't know leading up to it, like 10 minutes before the game. Was that intentional, so he wasn't all freaked out and worrying about it the night before, or was there a strategy behind that?
Probably. If he does something, it's always for a reason. These are the types of things that I don't really know about all that much. He's the quarterback coach. I don't, I more oversee kind of what we're game planning and prepping on a week in, week out basis, but he, works directly with the quarterback. So,
well, it worked really well. And, we had a lot of fun watching Ferris all year long, especially Wyatt, our Corona connection. All 3 of us are from Corona. And it was just fun to watch. And one follow-up question. I know the Saginaw Valley game, you laid it out perfectly, what was really going on. But after that game, was there any special kind of coaching you had to do to kind of pick Wyatt up, make sure he was okay moving forward, because he ended up being a big part of your final stretch?
Yeah, so I think that for him, it was just like, having confidence through the injury. I think there were times that he got really, really down of,
Mhm.
hey, I feel like I can't play. Like if I go out, I'm going to hurt the team because I'm just too hurt.
Mhm.
And I think his mindset was like, nervous about that and nervous that would lead to the end of our season. I guess the biggest thing that I kept telling him over and over again, kind of on the side is I pull him aside and say, hey, listen, man, one of two things happen right now. Either you can play because you feel good enough and you're going to go out and play and help us win, or you can't play because you don't feel good enough and, Chase is going to go out and win a football game. I think that's the biggest thing is you know, those guys have belief in each other, have belief in themselves, have belief in our team and the system and what we do. So I think when you ask about rotating quarterbacks or doing this or doing that, I think it only works if your entire team has belief in the things that you do. And I think those guys are unbelievably locked in on, Ferris State, what we do, and that ultimately whatever decisions we're making are going to be for the best of the team.
Yeah, you guys obviously have built quite the culture and overall program there, where you've got quarterbacks that are cool splitting time with two other guys. You've got a quarterback saying that he would put on weight and become an H-back. I mean, like if you've got players doing that, then you guys are doing something right. Like you said, you've got players that just want to find a way to get on the field. That's a good thing to have. I wanted to ask you, one of the biggest storylines in all of college football right now is the transfer portal. And you guys obviously, Trinidad Chambliss is, one of the big ones that you guys have had to, I guess deal with, if you want to say it that way. I know you had an offensive lineman last year transfer over to Michigan. You've got a couple other guys in the portal. I'm just curious, your thoughts or what you can say, your thoughts on the transfer portal in general, good or bad. It's giving these kids new opportunities. And is it maybe also in a sense helping D2 because maybe you guys are getting guys that you wouldn't otherwise? Or just your overall thoughts on the transfer portal.
Yeah, so I try to look at it as not necessarily like an all good, all bad thing. There are aspects of it that are good. There are aspects of it that aren't so good, I think. For us, we certainly are able to recruit a higher level of high school player than was ever available to us because in the past, there were D1s, especially the mid-level D1s, that would take shots on guys that maybe needed a little bit of time to develop, but had like very elite skill sets in certain ways. And those are the guys that we're getting pretty constantly now. You see it with Trin, you see it with Wyatt, you see it with, a lot of guys in a lot of different positions, where they would be surefire D1 guys,
Right.
maybe 5 years ago. So I think that is a positive for us. And obviously, when we have a proven track record of sending guys to that level, you get more and more opportunities to get guys that are like that. So, if you moving forward, if you see that Trinidad Chambliss, he went to Ferris State. Hey, I don't really necessarily like my D1 offers. Maybe I have like some mid levels that are just okay. I'd rather go to Ferris State and play. I think that there's a little bit of that mindset. I think the negative is you see guys, and it's sad, but you see guys that are never going to play football again, that, hop into the portal thinking they're expecting something better. But, when you have 10,000 guys in the portal
Right.
all looking for a home, people can't take everyone. So I think guys hop in thinking, I'm going to get something better. And I think there are too many of them that never end up playing again,
Right.
Whether that's because they get stuck in the portal, whether that's because whoever takes them, is invested in them. I think a lot of the 1-year guys specifically, you go someplace thinking, okay, like I'm gonna get my 1-year shot to do this, do that, and you never really end up playing again. You go somewhere and someone's not necessarily invested in you the way that, colleges would be invested in you if you had been there, 3-4 years. I think we had maybe like 6 or 7 guys leave last year and end up at Division I programs. And really everyone sits here and talks about Trinidad Chambliss, which rightfully so is unbelievable. I love talking about Trin. I'm so happy for what he's done, but, really you don't talk about half of them that never step foot on the field for their teams.
Right.
So you don't talk about, Bryce George, Tyrese Thompson, Cannon Katzer, who all went to Division I programs and didn't play. So, and all three of them, really were seniors heading into their senior season. So I think, sometimes people look at the upside and the great stories and, all of it that's positive, and don't look at that when they go to hop in the portal and say, okay, well, what happens if this doesn't work out?
Right.
What were practices like this year? I mean, we haven't even talked about the defense. I think they had a school record in turnovers this season. I mean, I would imagine there were some pretty intense battles from the offensive side of the ball to the defensive side of the ball in practice this year.
Yeah, for sure. Going all the way back into spring ball, I think like you headed into spring ball and we're coming off of winning a national championship, and you have a lot of guys enter the portal, a lot of new faces, a lot of guys hungry to prove themselves, and prove that they're kind of the next wave of guys that are going to help Ferris State win a national championship. And those spring ball practices were really intense. I think it really threw some guys into the fire, and I think it really helped the development of some guys. So I think in general, for us, it's been hard to play quarterback at Ferris State as a freshman. You take Trinidad Chambliss, who really didn't become a full-time starter until his like fourth season at Ferris State. He went redshirt, played a little bit, full-time starter for Ferris State. So, as a redshirt freshman, I think it's difficult. And, I think, Wyatt got thrown into the fire. His brother Tarek got thrown in the fire. We had a couple of offensive linemen that were redshirt freshmen that really got thrown in the fire. Defensively, we played, a few freshman DBs. We played, a freshman linebacker. So, I think a lot of those guys got a very high level of competition very early in their career compared to, I think what normally happens. And so, our offense was really good this year. Our defense was really good this year. And I say to recruits all the time, when you're coming to Ferris State, you're coming because you want to maximize what you are, and you maximize what you are every day in practice rather than just like, hoping to get better during a game or something.
Right.
You don't get better, because you're going into a game and competing in a game. You get better based on competing against better players every day in practice. And, I think it does show.
Well, I'll tell you, Tony at the top, but the rest of the staff, when you are out on the recruiting trail, along with what you just described, something that was really noticeable and I've seen talked about is the love culture there. I mean, you guys get along. It seems like the team really sticks together with the word love. I mean, where's that philosophy come from? And does that really help on the recruiting trail when you're talking to mom and dad?
Yeah, I think absolutely. But not necessarily when you're talking. I think, words are fairly cheap, but when you get around the culture, I think over and over again, you get kids that, say, partway through their career at Ferris State, or, maybe earlier than you even expect. Hey, I know you guys said this. I know you've always preached this. I know, our core mantra has always been to be in the fold, with the L portion of that being love.
Mm-hmm.
And so we preach it over and over again to guys, they hear it over and over again. But, you get guys, okay, like I've been around it enough now. I understand. And I think that's the biggest thing. Like, you don't really, from the outside, you hear it talked about a lot, but until you see it, you don't understand how integral it is to our success. And I think, again, over and over again, you see guys that once they get into the culture and they see, truly the love that's bred from this culture, and, how much coaches care about players, players care about coaches, players care about players, coaches care about coaches. I think once you start to see that, you know, it really, really, really changes how you feel about, you know, having a team that's so interconnected.
You mentioned the recruiting trail. I know we've talked about Trinidad Chambliss, obviously. Jared Bernhardt, you mentioned earlier. Am I remembering right that he basically messaged you out of Maryland? He was playing Maryland lacrosse, and then he messaged you, and that's kind of how he ended up at Ferris?
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, he said from his own story, it's, hey,
Yeah.
you know, I wanted to play football. I knew that not many people were going to take a shot on me. You know, he had approached Maryland asking if he could walk on their football team, and they told him no. So he was like, you know, I didn't really know what to do. So I just emailed, I looked at the records for who was the best in Division II. And, you know, we had been in the semifinal in 2019. And this was between 2019 and 2020. We've been in the semifinal. We lost a heartbreaking game, and you know, to West Florida, they ended up winning the national championship. But he looked at that, seen who had been, you know, up near the top, and basically just emailed the offensive coordinators of the top teams and said, hey, you know, I don't know whether I can have an opportunity here, but here's my high school tape. I haven't played in, you know, 3 years, but, you know, if there's any interest, please let me know. And, you know, I'd seen kind of the story. He'd written, you know, a pretty long email about his story, his journey, and, you know, was a little inspired by that, and watched the tape and said, you know, hey, if this tape was sent to me and it was a high schooler, like, we would want this kid immediately. So I guess what changes now? It's not like he hasn't been doing anything for 3 years. He's been playing another college sport. You know, he's you know, certainly certainly in you know, athletic shape. So why not? Let's see. And you know, obviously he was an unbelievable player for us.
Well, before we get you out of here, Coach, what's next on the horizon? What's your upcoming schedule look like as far as recruiting and you know, what goes on?
Yeah, so we're actually fairly fortunate in that you know, we already have a pretty good number of commits from Michigan for this 2026 class. So, you know, we're going to continue to recruit those guys, see them sometime this week. Right now, as soon as I get off this with you guys, I'm going to start messing around with some Florida stuff. That's kind of been our second home base, is, you know, recruiting guys from Florida. You see it with Chase Carter. You see it with, you know, some of our other great talent who's played for us. So just in the infancy of putting together some recruiting lists for the state of Florida.
Well, Coach, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us here this morning. Fantastic job with Ferris. Keep it rolling up there. And once again, congratulations on that National Coach of the Year award, man. That's awesome.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate it, and appreciate you guys having me on.
All right. Thanks, Coach. And we'll talk to you down the road.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, let's first of all, let's just start in the Detroit Lions, because we're recording this on Monday morning, and let's kind of do our post-mortem. You know, they finished off with a W, beating the Bears last night, 19-16, to finish with a winning record. There's a lot of mixed thoughts I'm sure we'll have here breaking down the Lions, their performance this year, maybe moving forward. I'll let you two guys jump into it first.
It is a little frustrating because we go from 2 years ago in the NFC Championship game last year, 15-2, number 1 seed, to now last place in the NFC North, but with a winning record. Every team, I'm sure you guys saw, every team in the NFC North finished the season with a winning record. Every team in the NFC South finishes with a losing record, and the Lions are left out of the playoffs. That's just how it happens sometimes. I mean, it's frustrating because even with all the injuries, even with, you know, and Dan Campbell said it in his, I don't know if you guys watched his post game, his locker room speech. You know, he kind of said, even though there's quote unquote nothing to play for, I mean, you know, that he was selling there's always something to play for when you're playing a game in the NFL. I mean, you're playing for your job, you're playing for just pride and everything. So, I mean, he kind of said that. So even though the Bears, quote unquote, had nothing to play for, they kind of did. They could have improved their seeding in the playoffs. Anytime you beat the Bears, and, you know, especially with the Ben Johnson storyline, and, you know, just trying to go off on a good note, it's a good thing. And it's frustrating because watching that game, you can see that the Lions, they could have been a playoff team this year. Like the injuries and some of the games, they really like fell apart in a couple games. And, if you want to say probably they don't deserve to be in the playoffs this year because of the games they lost. But when you see them playing well, it's like, this is a team that should be in the playoffs. This is a good team. If they had a couple guys healthy, if Branch and Joseph were healthy on the defense, a couple other guys, it's like, this is a playoff team. And now, sitting there in last place with a fourth place schedule next year, which will help out. So that's kind of part of my takeaway, and other things too. But watching that game is just it's almost more frustrating watching when they're playing well, because it's like, why couldn't you have done? You should be in the playoffs this year. You should be getting prepared for a playoff run, but now you're getting prepared for an off season that's going to be huge because they've got a lot of question marks going into the off season.
Yeah, it's time for Brad Holmes he's got to do something, man. This draft, these last two drafts have just been duds. And then you see basically it seems like the entire offensive line is going to retire, which maybe is a good thing. It's not a good thing, but man, they didn't really have that great of a year. But I mean, is Ragnow a Hall of Famer? I mean, maybe. So right. It's like you're losing him, and then Glasgow, maybe he's retiring too. So many holes to fill. And I mean, it's been in every broadcast, feels like the last month, but Dan Campbell's speech after that 49er game where we might not ever be back here. I mean, to me, it seems that way. I know we have the schedule next year. I know we'll be healthy, but I mean, this is the NFL. It seems like every team is banged up, and it seems like it's been kind of our excuse the last years. Yes, it's definitely hit us harder than most teams. Is that on us? Is that on these signings? And Kirby Joseph, I don't really even understand. And I love Kirby Joseph. He's on that guy's rule list. I don't understand what even happened to him, if I'm being honest. It seems like it's something that was maybe lingering even from last year. And so he's out of the year. Brian Branch, I mean, he's got an Achilles. Who knows when he's going to be back? Right. Anzalone's deal is up. I mean, the pass rush, Hutchinson really kind of came on strong at the end of the year, but, man, he still needs a lot of help. There's so many holes to fill that it would almost take a 2023 draft where we get like 4 big-time, Pro Bowl type players to really get us over the hump and win us a title. Especially when it's like, I mean, the Jared Goff conversation is – I'm a Jared Goff defender. I love Jared Goff. I think he gets a bad rap. I think it's just the normal quarterback type thing where when they're losing, he's the first guy that we all point at and say, he sucks. I don't know what – I still think he's solid. I mean, the offense really for how – poor the season seemed was still, still scored a lot of points and still really, looked good at a lot of points throughout the season. They obviously had studs. I mean, that Vikings game, I don't know what the hell was going on there. The Eagles game, obviously the Eagles with a lot of teams, but man, they looked horrible that game too offensively. Where do you guys stand on Goff? To me, Goff is maybe you could always argue, there's definitely quarterbacks better than him in the league. But and like what you say, Matt, with Jim Harbaugh, when people would want him fired, where do you go? I don't know who you sign. I don't know how you really improve that without giving up, a ton of assets in the process. Obviously, he's getting paid a lot of money next year. Hopefully, we can have some way to retool that so it's not such a big cap hit. But to me, with Jared Goff, it definitely died down with them winning a little bit yesterday. But I love Jared Goff. I'll fight for him till the end, and I think he's just getting a bad rap right now.
I'll give my opinion too, but Matt, I'm not dogging you on this, but you've come out publicly. You're not a Goff guy now. You're not walking the line anymore. You're not a Goff guy, period.
No, and I'm kind of in the same boat, like kind of like what you just said, Jared. It is where are you going to go that you're going to get better? Because if you want to be better than what Jared Goff is, it's who? Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, this Lamar Jackson, this list of guys that you're not going to go get, So that's where I'm kind of at, and you're locked in because of the contract. So no, I'm not saying he's trash. Trade him. I just think, and Mike Valenti, the Detroit radio guy, kind of laid it out this way too. If he's your guy and you're married to him, you have to do certain things to help him out, help him be successful. Offensive line. If Decker retires, if Glasgow retires, if who knows what happens with the other positions. You have to draft 2 or 3 offensive linemen. You have to spend all your offseason money on offensive linemen because that's the only way that he's going to be truly successful. And then if David Montgomery really wants out, you're going to trade him. What are you going to do in the run game? That's a big way to help him. So no, I mean, I'm only out on him because I just personally, my opinion, I don't think he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. The Rams traded him away because they could get Matthew Stafford. Stafford won a title and is about to win an MVP. We were in the NFC Championship game with him 2 years. The number 1 seed last year, couldn't get it done. I just don't think he's a guy to get you a Super Bowl win. He's a good quarterback, but I don't know.
That's fair, and obviously you're entitled to your opinion. I'm more on the side of I don't think Goff's the problem. I think, like you said, Valenti said it, the offensive line needs to be a top-notch offensive line. Right. Jared Goff has shown he can win when you got a great offensive line, and that goes hand in hand with the running game. They've had their ups and downs on the running game this year, and you can't get any better than Montgomery and Gibbs. I mean, I think it boils down to, and we got to live with Goff. That's all there is to it. There's no alternative. Yeah, maybe draft a quarterback somewhere along the line that can come in and take his spot when it's that time. But if I'm the Detroit Lions and I'm Brad Holmes and I'm Campbell, and you know how much Campbell loves Goff, he's not blaming Goff at all. And you look at his numbers. I mean, numbers can be skewed any way you want to, but his numbers, he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. If you look at those numbers. So give him some help, for God's sake. Right. Get an offensive line. Get that secondary healthy. Get the defense keeping you in games. The other thing is, I look at this season, guys, and like you said right at the beginning, Matt, this is a playoff team. And you can point right directly to that Steelers game. As bad as they played, they had the opportunity to win that right at the end of that game. That would have given them one more win. So that's 10 wins on the season. If they win that game against the Steelers, they're not going to lose to the Vikings. They're going to beat the Vikings, and they're going to be solidly in the playoffs. So this season, as bad as it was, and as they're not in the playoffs, they were just that close to being a playoff team, and they could make some noise in the playoffs. But the injuries did hurt.
Isn't that kind of the perfect microcosm of this Lions team this year? Or is it just feel like there would be 3-4 mental errors that would cost them games. Mm-hmm. I mean, in that Steelers game, we're down the 1-yard line, and then T-Slaw gets called for a pick play, and then now you're in 3rd and 12 or whatever it ended up being. Right. You have to have a miracle basically to score. And then that Vikings game, I mean, the turnovers. If you want to point to the Goff experience and be like, this is where, my God, he was horrible in that game. I will say that game, the fumbles, the turnovers, my God, he was bad. I mean, they literally lost to a quarterback who had 3 net passing yards. I don't know if I've ever seen that.
Well, I guess that point I was trying to make was, if they win that Bears game, they go into that Vikings game with a completely different mental attitude, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, when they got ready to play that game, what was their percentage of getting in the playoffs with a win? Like 10% or less?
19 or something like that. But right.
So the whole mindset was different.
Right.
I guess what I'm saying is I understand what you're saying. I do they were very close. Still, it's crazy that they still had a winning record this year. It felt like they lost a lot more than they won. They obviously didn't. To me, it didn't matter whether they got in or not. It seemed like a very flawed team, really, even when they were fully healthy against the Packers week 1. It's the offensive line, Ben Johnson, who they clearly still hate. I mean, Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson had a nice brush by handshake after the game. Didn't really even say anything to each other. That's such a bizarre situation. Is it literally just because he went to the Bears? I don't understand why they're so unhappy with him.
I think so.
Is it because he was flirting with jobs while he was still the OC, or is it because everyone said it was all Ben Johnson this whole year, and that's why the offense has struggled a little bit compared to years past? I don't know.
That's it. It's almost like there was there something else going on behind closed doors that we don't know about? Because Dan Campbell even came out and said last week or recently that he hasn't spoken to Ben Johnson all season since that's probably not abnormal for coaches, but you would think maybe if they were kind of friends, maybe they would have talked once or twice since he took the job. But Campbell said they haven't talked at all, which again, maybe there's nothing to that. And then you see the handshake after that game. It was just a quick, good game, and they were gone. So
weird.
I don't know if it's just that he went to the Bears, but Ben Johnson also says stuff. There was his press conference when he got hired. He kind of took a couple slight jabs at Jared Goff. He was like, what intrigued him about Caleb Williams was to actually have a quarterback that can evade the rush. And, he was saying stuff like that. I was like, oh, that seems odd. And then he said during this last game, against the Lions, his interview with I forget who the sideline reporter was, but he said like this was the easiest game plan we've had all year, and is that like a jab at the Lions defense, or were you just saying like we're just keeping it simple, so he seems to do that. So I don't know if it's that kind of stuff, but I'm in the boat. I mean, Jared Goff's the guy. I mean, we all said it. You're locked into that contract, and I'm okay with that. But I'm okay with it if you then really invest in the offensive line. Maybe this is what they needed, because like you said, Ted, and we've kind of said they seem to be a playoff team. They have the best point differential in the NFC North.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're the last place team in the NFC North, but they have the best positive point differential of the 4 teams. So it's like that doesn't mean anything. What means everything is the win-loss record. But maybe they needed this not making the playoffs to be like, we're not in the playoffs. We have to improve this roster. They've kind of been riding this. Brad Holmes crushing those first couple drafts. They made a couple good signings. They're paying their guys. They pay Penei Sewell. They're paying Hutch. They're paying St. Brown. We're paying all our guys, and they're making the playoffs the last couple of years. Number 1 seed. Maybe now this is a look in the mirror. Like, all right, we've got to improve this roster, because we're locked into our guys that we just gave these huge contracts to. If we want to actually prove that Jared Goff is the guy, prove that, we made the right draft picks, we better improve this roster. Otherwise, we're going to be out of the playoffs again.
Yeah, they better do that for sure. And then the other glaring thing that pops out is the coaching staff. There's noise out there. People want Dan Campbell fired. They're nuts. No. They're out of their mind. But they do got to solve the problem with the offensive coordinator situation and the play calling in general. I mean, last night, for God's sakes, third down and 1, and you try some goofy play with a pass to Jared Goff. Are you kidding me?
I will say, sorry, not to jump in.
No, go ahead.
I'm not on the boat 100%. I don't think any of us are. Fire Dan Campbell. No, that's ridiculous. I think he definitely they need to make an offensive coordinator hire, because you can see, some people are like, Dan Campbell's just a meathead. No, dude, that guy is as smart of a football guy as there is. But you can see where Ben Johnson clearly had an effect. And I think it's those 4th down calls, or some of those 3rd down calls, where Ben Johnson would dial stuff up that was like genius type of stuff. And maybe that's where Dan Campbell like lacks a little bit, but some of that stuff is a little glaring.
I can't disagree. I mean, they need to hire a good offensive coordinator. I'm hearing Kingsbury might be available from Washington. I don't know if he's the answer, but they need they need somebody that can do it. Another Ben Johnson, if you can.
Right.
That's what, like, we blame a lot on the offensive line. So a lot of that's play calling too. I mean, you wonder why Ferris is able to run it on everybody year after year. Yeah, they have good offensive linemen. It's also big time scheme. And you see that with Ben Johnson, where it gets there. Yeah, they made a couple big, lineman signings in offseason, but it's because of his scheme and how they run different ways. And it just seems predictable on offense this year.
Right.
I mean, the perfect microcosm, you said that 3rd and 1. I don't hate the trick play, but every 3rd and 1, it seems like we've blundered it this entire year. We can't figure it out. We get stuffed. We go play action pass. It doesn't work. Everything but the simple solution to just hand it to Montgomery and let it get a yard. It seems like we've done everything but that. These critical situations all year. I don't know. I'm kind of out on them. You guys seem a lot more, hopeful. I see teams getting better. I see the 49ers getting better. I see the Eagles. Right. Howie Roseman's best driver there is. I see the Rams. They've somehow, been good and then won a Super Bowl, then tanked and then came back, and now they're better than us already. I don't see the future, where we're going to be Super Bowl contenders. Yeah, we'll be a good team. I don't know if this core is enough to get us over the hump. I really don't. I mean, if Goff was Patrick Mahomes, this is 100% a good enough core. But Goff's just pretty damn good, and I think he's got some nice pieces as well, but he was at his peak a couple years ago with 2 big-time coordinators. I will say Aaron Glenn. I mean, what the hell happened to the Jets this year? That was kind of a classic Lions story, where this former DB, we loved him as a defensive coordinator, takes over. They don't have a single interception all year.
Unreal.
I don't even understand how that's literally possible since like 1933.
Yeah.
I mean, Shepard didn't have the best year as a defensive coordinator either, but I mean, my God, what a bizarre situation that was out of New York.
Yeah. I'll give Shepard the benefit of the doubt on injuries. I mean, when you lose your whole secondary and they had no pressure on that defensive line, I mean, that's a pretty tough spot to be. I do have a question for you guys, putting your coaching hat on. Late in the season when the Lions were all beat up offensively on that line, and I just thought something that would be bold would play Gibbs and Montgomery together, and maybe bring in another offensive lineman, pull out a tight end. You can have Gibbs in the slot. You can have him in the backfield with two backs. Run them both together. Why not try that when you're in that situation?
Seems like they did that. I don't know. I don't know the exact amount of times, but it seems like when they would do that, they would have success.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know what the philosophy was there of not playing them both all the time, but I thought about that too. It seemed like Dan Skipper was the extra offensive lineman they would bring in a lot.
Right.
And he's not necessarily, whatever. So I thought about that too. Bringing in extra offensive lineman, help that line out, give Goff time, help the run game out. But they've got a lot of stuff to figure out, and they have cap space. They have their draft picks. So they need to do something, because kind of like what we're all saying, they've got the nucleus of some of the star players, but now you have to add that depth, and that's what's kind of hurt them the last couple seasons. Is once one guy goes down, they're signing dudes off the street to fill the holes.
Right. So wrapping up this Lions talk, Jared's already on record as saying the Super Bowl window is gone, right? Is that fair?
I mean, yeah, I think it is. I'd say it. Dan Campbell nailed it. The stars aligned in that season, and we had all the our home field advantage was nuts. The vibes were at an all-time high. We had an all-time offensive coordinator. Dan Campbell, some of maybe the shine has worn off with this fourth down type thing, but that was kind of taking the league by storm. Now I think people are prepared for it. It just seems like it's a flawed team, and GM did nothing to help them. I think they were very close. This probably was the year to do it, and we just sat and did nothing this offseason. We just re-signed guys who they're all pretty good, but I mean, sometimes you got to make those tough decisions. I mean, was signing J-Mo for that money, was it worth it? If you want to talk about Goff, maybe you could have got creative and done something with Goff if we really think we could have upgraded that. I don't know.
Right.
Just there's so many different moves that I put it this way. If they would have done anything, I would have supported it rather than just do nothing. We weren't good enough to do nothing. We saw that last year. And we were going to be a little bit more healthy this year defensively. And that's another problem. I don't know who the trainer is. I don't know if it's on Dan Campbell for the whole hard knock speech and how they hit during practice. They got to figure this out. The injuries are crazy. It's more than I've ever seen in an NFL program for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Well, wrap it up with your bow, Matt, because we already know you don't think Goff can win the Super Bowl, right?
I don't think he can, as the team is currently constructed. Now, if you build an offensive line like you were just saying, Jared, in 2023, you have a chance, but they were up 17 at half on the 49ers in that NFC title game. And yeah, there were some drops and some other stuff did happen, but Jared Goff didn't get it done there. Jared Goff didn't get it done for the Rams when he started in the Super Bowl. So no, I just think you can't just hope that Brad Holmes is going to cook and draft a couple good guys. I mean, you have to build an offensive line, and whatever's going to happen with David Montgomery and some of these other positions. So it's a lot. It just seems like a lot. And hey, I hope I'm wrong. I want to see the line. I hope I'm wrong. I don't want to be proven right. I want to be proven wrong. And if there's one thing I want to see in my lifetime is a Lions Super Bowl. And I think all three of us agree on that. I want to see the Lions win a Super Bowl. He seems to have too many limitations in today's NFL.
Well, you guys might have a better chance of seeing that Super Bowl than me, but hashtag since 57, I'm going to go a little bit more positive. I think they still can do it. I think they got like a 2-year window now. Right. I think if they have to absolutely build that offensive line. I mean, we had the little text string after that Indiana win, and they had the center come up and won the most valuable offensive player award. I said, let's draft that guy. Yep. I mean, that's what they need to look at. They look at their first draft choice should be a stud offensive lineman, and they should plug in a free agent somewhere, somebody that's really good, and solidify that offensive line. Keep the rest of your core if you can. If Montgomery decides to leave or Anzalone, you can patch those holes, I think, but the core skill players they have, I still think they have enough to get it done. It's crucial that they make the right decisions as far as who they're drafting, who they're signing, and who they're bringing on board as an offensive coordinator. Because I think Morton's obviously done, right? I don't know if they'll even keep him on staff, but they got to get somebody in there calling the plays for sure. And let Campbell just concentrate on doing his thing. So That's
Definitely
my
agree
opinion.
there. Yep.
All right, let's take a real short break and come back. And gosh, we're really using a lot of time here, so let's just wrap up the podcast with a little college football right after this. All right, we're going to definitely get into Michigan and their hiring of a new coach, but I just have to say right from the get-go, and we talked about it with Coach Annese, Trinidad Chambliss and his performance in the victory over Georgia in that game was one of the best college football games I think I've ever seen. I say that probably once a year, but
Right.
it was unbelievable. What a game, huh?
It was one of those when, you say you have no horse in the race, when you're just
Right.
sitting there as a fan watching it. It was just an entertaining game. Two really good teams, quarterbacks. I mean, Gunnar Stockton for Georgia was also playing out of his mind. I mean, he's diving all over the place, getting trucked as he's throwing it. I mean, and then you got Chambliss running around like it's backyard football. I mean, it really was just an overall entertaining game. And then you add the storyline with obviously the whole Lane Kiffin situation with Ole Miss and everything going on with them. That makes it such a cool storyline. And then, the bow on top of the playoff is the Buckeyes lost. So it's always good to see Ohio State get knocked out. But then the other side of it is the Curt Cignetti story with Indiana. It's almost like it is being talked about a lot, but it's almost like it's not being talked about enough. Indiana football is the best team in the country right now. And we'll probably talk about it in a minute. They're crushing the transfer portal already. They've got their quarterback, Nick Marsh from Michigan State, is going to Indiana. They've got like some defensive players from Wisconsin. I mean, Cignetti's not slowing down. They've got the Heisman Trophy winner going to the NFL next year, and they've got their quarterback coming in. They're not going anywhere as long as Cignetti is there. So, but no, Chambliss with Ole Miss, that's a really cool story.
Yeah, it's freaking awesome. That was the game of the year. I mean, that was an all-time performance, and like you said, you just wonder what Lane Kiffin is thinking. I mean, I know he wanted to keep coaching, and it's not really his fault. It's the calendar, which how many times do we have to talk about how the calendar is screwed up before they decide to change it? I don't even understand what the limitations are to like just moving it all up a week and, get rid of one of the bye weeks in between. I mean, God forbid Army and Navy doesn't have a standalone day. God forbid we even have the conference championships. Those are a joke. It's ridiculous. And then the overall just, I mean, I don't know how deep we need to get into it, I guess, but the how many times does the bowl season have to happen? The SEC goes like 1-6, and and we go. This guy, Matt, you tweeted it out, and it's a perfect tweet. I need to pull it up. The guy who said, every year bowl season these SEC teams lose, but trust us, it's a gauntlet. Like you just got to trust us on it that the SEC is this gauntlet. Just trust us. This is ridiculous. And Bama gets their absolute doors blown off. At some point, there's got to be changes made to this playoff. And they're going to say we got to expand it, and we don't need to expand it. Fix the goddamn calendar. Fix these buys. Fix the SEC. They're not the head and shoulders best conference like they were 5-10 years ago. There definitely was a period of time in my whole childhood where they were that good. Yeah. It's not that way anymore with NIL. It's just not. So let's start beating all these conferences pretty damn equally. Honestly, and it just was a shame that BYU and Bama, neither of them should have been and that's crazy to say because Alabama did win a playoff, ironically against another SEC school. But I don't know. To me, that is to me an overarching thing as well. Cignetti's awesome. Trinidad Chambliss is awesome. Yep. We got to figure out this playoff. It's still very flawed.
Yeah, the calendar is the whole thing. The calendar for the playoff games and the calendar for the NIL. I mean, it's just nuts out there, man. I just can't believe it. But it's ended up with 4 pretty good teams in the Final Four, Oregon and Miami on the other side of the bracket. And like you said, Matt, when Miami knocked out Ohio State, that didn't break our heart. What they lost, they lost their last 2 games.
Yep.
Coming off a national championship. So some things are okay with the playoffs, but I agree the calendar is ridiculous. And it's crazy.
People like Dan Lanning, and we've talked about it. Other people have talked about it. Dan Lanning, Oregon's coach, he laid it out. Basically what you just said, Jared, you move it up. Whether you take away conference championship weekend, I think we all agree that could go away, but it's never going to because of the money that it makes for networks and conferences, but it probably should go away.
Yes.
But if you move it all up, have it always end with a national championship in the Rose Bowl on January 1st. Think about how amazing that would be if every Rose Bowl on January 1st was a national championship. You got the parade in the morning and you end it with a national title game. Then you can open the transfer portal right after that. and the season's over. Right now, you've got players on Miami, you've got players on Oregon entering the transfer portal, and their teams are playing for a national championship. It's like, I don't even understand how, but you understand why, because if they're going to transfer, they got to find their next school. So, I mean, like it makes sense for that reason. It's just crazy to see. It just seems like it would be an easy thing to fix. I mean, but you know, we're not the ones making those decisions.
Well, we keep watching it, and you know, the teams, they all adjust to the new rules and all that, but it could be so much better.
It could be. Smarter
people should be running this thing for sure. Well, smarter people finally figured out Michigan's head coach situation. I'm not all bad with it at all. I mean, DeBoer, maybe that wasn't the right guy, you know, when you look at it all, the picture, and maybe Whittingham all along should have been the number one contender. I mean, yeah, he's a little older, 66, but he has the great resume. Yeah, you know, I think he's gonna be good for Michigan myself.
I mean, if anything, he's going to build a culture. We talked to Steve Annese about what his dad, Tony Annese, is doing at Ferris State. I think it's going to be a very similar thing. It's going to be a old school style of play, you know, culture. And he's hired, again, kind of like Tony Annese. He's got a couple of his family members, Whittingham does, on his staff. And he basically brought everyone over from over there. Utah and BYU guys, basically all of Michigan's staff now, which, you know, I think they kept a couple guys from the previous staff, but I think that's probably the best thing. You know, we all talked about maybe is Biff Poggi going to stay on as like an analyst, you know, or something like that, or some of these other guys going to stick around. It is almost better that they just cleaned house and basically have a whole new staff. Let's just kind of start over, get, you know, some new blood in there, a new era, if you want to say that. And the thing with Whittingham, the age. Nick Saban won a title when he was 69 years old. We see what Signetti's doing with Indiana, and Whittingham basically said this. I mean, he sees that this is his last chance as a head coach. So, you know, he's going to come in there with a re-energized, you know, focus of like, I'm at Michigan, and 2, this is my last chance. I signed a 5-year deal. This is it. I got to win a title. So I love it.
It's like, it's the bucket list for him, right? Yep. I mean, he looks at the University of Michigan football program. He gets to go finish his career coaching the maize and blue. I mean, it's a perfect setup for him.
Yeah, I wouldn't say call it like a home run hire, but I mean, this is also the way you got to judge is we went 10-3 with a psycho baby as our head coach. So imagine what we're going to do with a guy who's got his count straight. It's like they're going to win 10 games next year. It's Michigan. If they hit the portal hard, it's, you know, the timeline isn't great. Him coming in a little bit late, but still, if you hit the portal hard, and honestly, this upcoming season, it's going to come down to Bryce Underwood. You guys know my thoughts on him. That's kind of like I'm out on Bryce Underwood. Matt's out on Jared Goff. It's like if Michigan wins the national title, I'm going to look like an idiot. If Jared Goff, you know, is a superstar and leads the way, it's like, wow, that's when first thoughts like Matt didn't like Jared Goff. So I'm kind of riding the other way with Bryce Underwood. Yeah. So we'll see. I would be ready to move on from Bryce Underwood tomorrow. I know he had a good first half against Texas. I don't doubt that he can develop into a good quarterback. To me, it just doesn't make sense in today's day and age to hope and pray that he develops. Go get somebody. Go get somebody that's proven. Look at what Signetti is doing. I mean, and a lot of these programs are. Lane Kiffin at LSU now. He's obviously not a quarterback currently. But what Signetti's doing in Indiana makes the most sense. Just go get the most proven guy every year, or one of those top 5 portal quarterbacks that have balled out elsewhere, and then keep doing it year after year instead of hoping that Underwood pans out, maybe doesn't. As for Whittingham, he's a good hire. The whole coaching search was kind of confusing to me. It was almost like a bunch of smoke screens that they were it seemed like it was all done that Whittingham was coming, which that was my hire. And then it's like he never even got offered the job. And the Whittingham, why did Whittingham, he just decided it was time to step down at Utah and let his subordinate take over? Basically, he just thought it was the right time. What was the timeline where he leaves Utah and then 2-3 weeks later he's Michigan's head coach? I was kind of confused by that as well.
Well, I think at least what I read, it almost seems like it was miscommunication with like them in Utah and him. Yeah. You know, whether it's his agent, I don't know if he has an agent. I'm sure he does. But yeah, it was that he was gonna, you know, set it up for the guy that's taken over, and they didn't run him out, but it was basically a mutual like, all right, your time is done here, you know, type of thing. Like he wasn't necessarily ready to retire, but it was like, your time's done here. We're ready for the next guy. So here's the door. And Michigan went, okay, come on in.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't give him the warm and fuzzy, like, you can go on your own terms. I think there was some of the pressure that they wanted him out of there,
Right.
whether it was next year or not. But yeah, there was some behind the scene things there going on without a doubt. But I think he's a solid hire.
Yeah.
Just recapping a little bit of the Citrus Bowl. I mean, they played pretty well early on, but then they just fell apart. Arch Manning just killed them. I mean, he had his best game of the year, I think, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Arch was really good. I mean, the hype for Arch next year is going to be absolutely out of control, and maybe rightfully so. He finished the season really strong. Yeah, I think you said it, Jared. It all. I mean, we haven't got confirmation Bryce Underwood's hitting the portal, but I don't know if we have to because he's on the roster. He have to say that he's staying at Michigan because he's at Michigan right now. But that's what it's all about. It all. Yeah, you got to add some guys, improve the offensive line, and improve the defense because, like you just said, Ted, Arch tore apart that defense. So you got to improve the defense. But my thing is, if Bryce has that kind of talent, that we all know he has that talent, whether it comes together is a different story. He finally is going to have a coaching staff that's actually committed to developing him. They hired a QB coach.
Porn stars.
Right. So that's what I keep thinking. If whether Whittingham works out, whether the whole staff that he built works out, we don't know. If anything, it's an upgrade over what was there. And they won 9 games with whatever the heck was there. So like you'd have to think that that's going to improve. And he's got a full year of playing under his belt. He's going to be a sophomore. So you got to hope that all of that will improve.
Right.
We'll see.
Well, go blue. We'll find out. We'll wrap this podcast up with some quick hitters here then. Speaking of go blue, Michigan 13-0 in basketball. Another impressive performance against USC. They got Penn State coming up in Wisconsin. But, if they stay healthy, this team, who's going to beat them?
Need somebody to stay close with them. Nobody's been close with them since like the first week of the season, it feels like.
Right.
It's unreal what they're doing. And what a great doubleheader that was, watching Michigan just destroy USC. Then Michigan State comes on against Nebraska, this Michigan State team that I've been told is the Final Four team, and they lose. To what a line. I mean, you got Nebraska guys out there wearing number 51. I don't know what's going on with them, but they won. But Michigan is unreal how good they are. It really is. Like, it's scary. I mean, Dusty May is basically the Signetti of and that's what I've saw people draw parallels. Like, it's weird. Like, Michigan's the best basketball team in the country. Indiana's the best football team in the country. It's just kind of bizarre how it's swapped like that. But
sure is.
No, I mean, Dusty May. What more can you say about that guy? I think we were all on board the second he got hired. That's a guy who proved it at a smaller level, FAU. And everything he proved at FAU is coming true at Michigan. It's unreal how good they are and how much they're rolling.
Yeah, and the Indiana thing is kind of the point you're making. I mean, he hit the portal. He's got a couple guys who've been there for a few years, Cheddar, one of them, and he's got a couple other guys. But then he hit the portal, and he nailed the guys that he brought in the transfer portal, and that's maybe what today's college basketball is all about. It's kind of frustrating as a fan to have to relearn the roster every year. But, now that, like we've said, college basketball season really, really starts basically now after after the holidays, it really starts to pick up when Big Ten play starts. We've got the Michigan State game, the first one here at the end of the month. That'll be a big one. But no, that's what it is. Everything right now is there for Michigan. They've done everything. They're healthy. Yaxel has had a couple little nagging injuries, so hopefully he'll be good to go. But no, they've got the size, they got the shooting, they got the leadership. I mean, yeah. People at work keep asking me oh man, this is the year Michigan's going to win the national title, and it's like, I mean, how it goes. March Madness, you never know what's going to happen. You got to have a good draw. You got to whether you're traveling a lot, all that kind of stuff. So you just never know how it goes. But everything's there. Everything's there for them.
Yeah, with that kind of season, you're going to have a bad game somewhere along the line.
Right.
Hopefully it doesn't happen in March for sure. And then just wrapping it up here, we know the Pistons are good. We know they're going to be competing for a title, possibly, especially in the East. Only thing I'm going to say on the Pistons, how cool was it? I don't know if you guys got a chance to watch them against the Lakers on that Friday night national broadcast. That was pretty cool. They kicked their butt too. Yeah,
the Lakers are a little bit of a mess right now. They don't know if should Luka be the guy, should LeBron be the guy. They don't really know what's going on there. But the Pistons, even though they've stumbled, they've lost a couple games here and there, but they're still 3 or 4 games up. and the number one team in the East. So as long as they can do that and stay healthy, same thing that I basically said about Michigan. Everything's there for the Pistons to make a run in the East. So
yep. By the way, sorry guys, keeping you a little longer here. I forgot all about the Prep Spotlight, and we do have a Prep Spotlight presented by Jacobs Insurance Agency, local, independent, and trusted. I'll jump right into it. On the ladies' side, Ovid Elsie's kicker, Danica Campbell, was recently named All MMAC. She was 4 of 6 on field goals, a long of 37 yards, 8 of 11 on her career from field goals, and nailed 43 out of 46 extra points. You don't hear that too often. A female all-league in football. That's a pretty cool little story here.
Yeah.
Also in basketball, boys basketball, Freeland defeated Harbor Beach 68-52 on January 2nd. That's the Pirates' first loss of the season. Tucker Heilman led the Falcons with 17 points in that one. I had a chance to watch Freeland live a little earlier or during the break up in Grand Rapids, and they had their only loss of the season there against a pretty good Grand Haven team. But Freeland's going to be a solid squad again for Coach John Fattel. Keep it in the Corunna area. Kyle Clough, the former Cavalier, your teammate, Matt. Rockford's Rams had a couple big W's in Traverse City. They downed Traverse City West on Friday night, January 2nd, 72-36, and then got Traverse City Central 86-55 on Saturday. Jake Bascom had 23. Rockford Rams 8-0 for Kyle Clough. Might be able to make a deep run, huh?
Yeah, might be able to make a run. I know he has said before that they've really come together this year. I think those kind of things are cool. We never did that when I was playing, again, this 20 years ago or whatever, but go up somewhere like Traverse City and you play a Friday, Saturday.
Yeah, spend
in
the
a
night.
sense, call it a double header. And I think that would be so cool.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, those seem a lot more frequent nowadays. Like pretty much seems like almost every team is doing something like that, or at least any of the teams that are pretty solid. It is cool. I'm with you. I would my team was never good enough to have that lottery. Your team definitely probably could have, but my team didn't deserve that distinction of a holiday tournament. We were better in the practice gym over holiday break, just practicing as much as we could.
Yeah, here locally they had an M21 Classic. I don't have all the facts in front of me, but we had Ovid Elsey and Ovid Elsey and Durand and Owasso and St. John's in a little mini tournament over at OE, and they're going to kind of try to rotate that every year and maybe mix some more teams in it here locally. That's a great idea, I think. And I'll wrap it up, guys, with this. The 3 Point Podcast Prep Spotlight Performance of the Week. Check this out. Owasso High has an all-time basketball leading scorer, and her name is Danica Dwyer. She lit up Durand with 42 points recently to set the Trojan single-game record. And in the same game, she passed Kurt Skinner's career 1,088 points. That record has stood since the late 60s, and she's just going to demolish that record by the end of the season as the all-time scorer in basketball, either boys or girls. That's quite an achievement for her right there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it's going to get 2,000 points.
Maybe. Depends how the Trojans do and how deep they can go in the tournament. That's unheard of. Okay, that'll do it. Again, anybody out there listening for suggestions on the Prep Spotlight, why don't you shoot me an email at tedfattel@gmail.com, and we'll include your story if it's worthy.
If it's worthy.
By the way, I had a Tedtertainment tonight. I'm not going to run it, but I do have one comment to make. Matt, I don't know if you caught MTV. Did you ever watch MTV in the video channel instead of the real reality shows?
Yep.
I remember when MTV started in 1981, and it was all just music videos all day, 24/7.
Yep.
It was the most amazing thing to come across back in the 80s there. And you'd be sitting home, working at your desk or whatever, but you just have MTV on, and they'd have all these video music all day long. Well, it just ended up, they're done now with their all video channels.
Yep.
2025. Video killed the radio star. That was the first song they played, and that's the last song they played here on their tribute show, I guess.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that it was showing this music videos all the time, was still airing somewhere. Is that?
Yeah, they had their own little channel that was all videos.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that was even still a thing.
It is funny how, music videos. I mean, you go to some of these on YouTube and they have billions of views on YouTube. So music videos are definitely still a thing and a big deal. I mean, my kids, my daughter will go on YouTube and like search up her music videos, the stuff that she likes, and watch music videos. Yeah, K-pop. She Taylor Swift and Bruno Mars and some other. But yeah, the K-pop Demon Hunters are the big one. But MTV. It's crazy how that went away. And
Well, I
what it
can't tell
used
you
to be.
guys, being the old dude here and going back to early 80s, when did ESPN start? Like 89, or was it a little
Yeah,
before
it was in
that?
the 70s.
Oh, it was 79 maybe.
Yeah.
But I remember we didn't have ESPN on our cable station. Every time I paid my bill, $6.95 a month, I'd write on my bill, I want ESPN. Get ESPN. I need ESPN. So it was a life changer when we finally got that.
Yeah.
But when we got MTV, you guys can't even imagine what a game breaker that was to have this channel with all the music you liked, Cyndi Lauper and all these Michael Jackson and all that. And you had this video all day long. It was just unbelievable to come across that.
So your battles with the cable company go all the way back to the 70s.
Yeah.
Back to the 70s when I was paying $6.95 a month for Cox Cable.
Cox Cable. That's still a thing.
Your
too.
picture is probably on their wall, like with a freaking bullseye in it. Like, this guy is the thorn in our side.
He's a psycho. All right, that's enough here. Hey, we've had a good podcast, a little longer than most, but we're starting out the year with a bang. We're brought to you by Memorial Healthcare's Wellness Center. Get in shape with a 2026 membership today. Our other great partners include AZee Branding Solutions, ALS of Michigan, Blackstone's Public House, Jacobs Insurance Agency, Kori Shook & Associates Real Estate Services, Nelson House Funeral Homes, Nichols Painting, Success Group Mortgage and Servicing, and the Shiawassee County Fair. The next Z92.5 game of the week coming up Friday, January 9th, 7 o'clock. Casey and Joe will be at Birch Run as the Ovidelcy Marauders travel to Birch Run. Again, I want to thank our special guest, Steve Annese of the national champion Ferris State Bulldogs. Fun convo with him, and you could tell he definitely knows his football. Peace and love, everybody. Be kind. Thanks for listening.